Good evening, folks. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you, one that will provide several hours of pleasurable relaxation and diversion for you and your family. We hope you'll make this a weekly visit. Bring the family. Bring your friends. We hope you have a wonderful time. Come back soon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nights of the Pageless Library. Usually, this is a podcast dedicated to audiobooks, but today we have a special guest with us, Garrett Michael Brown. You might remember him from a couple books that we reviewed, but he's here with us today. Garrett, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for joining us. And I don't know if we've actually mentioned this previously on the podcast, but Garrett I reached out on Reddit just a while back to see if anybody would be interested in coming on. And Garrett reached out to us as interested in being on our little podcast. So we really appreciate that.
I'm very excited to be here. It's my first podcast as a narrator.
Oh, really? Oh, awesome. Very
We
cool.
feel honored.
Thank you. I did an interview with Josh Gayu about a year ago just for fun, but not a podcast. This is brand new. It's exciting.
Cool. I'm glad you're excited. Garrett, how did you get started in the audiobook game? I know you're kind of newer, which is exciting to me. So, what brought you into the narration?
Actually, it's something I've been wanting to do since I was a kid. My dad, for some reason, was really into books on tape back in the day when we still had cassette tapes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd sit at our little 1970s style wet bar and record myself reading into one of those old Fisher-Price hard plastic red tape recorders.
No way.
Yeah, a long time ago. It was for fun. It was just something I liked doing. And then I don't know. Then life intervened, and I went through a couple different career options. I was an actor for a long while, and then I was a chef for an even longer while.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for about 15 years here in Seattle.
Oh,
And
wow.
then-
Very cool.
Yeah, thanks. It paid the bills mostly. And then some family stuff and personal stuff, and it just happened to work out. I'm sorry, my wife and I had a baby, and we decided it would be better for me not to continue working because of what I was making, and this presented itself as an option, and it's worked out really well so far. So I was stay-at-home dad / audiobook narrator.
Oh, man, that's so cool.
Yeah, it was pretty great. Kind of dream come true stuff.
Yeah, no kidding. That's awesome that it just kind of all, lined up perfectly like that, especially since it was something you wanted to do from a young age. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know how many people get to say they wanted to do something as a young kid and then eventually get to do it. I mean, the astronaut part didn't work out, but the audiobook part comes up.
Right. Sweet.
So then just started doing some looking online on how to do it, and actually there's this website called ACX, which is Amazon Creative Exchange. And it teams up first-time or new narrators with first-time or new authors, and then you can audition for different books, and then the author can listen to all the narration and then pick who they want, and you just kind of go from there. And it just sort of started there and just sort of grew and made connections and networked like in every industry, and now it's going real well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing either for new authors and narrators. That's because we kind of came up, the whole idea for this podcast too was we got into audiobooks through books on tape when we were younger too.
Awesome.
And your options back then were far more limited than they are today, obviously. So it's very cool that it gives so many people, both authors and narrators, the opportunity to even get into the game. Because I can't imagine when it was books on tape, it was probably really hard to even get into the game.
Yeah, that's going to be agents and that kind of thing. Actually having to go into a recording studio,
Right?
like a
Exactly.
musician, and sit there, with a music stand and a book, and just read the book,
Right.
into the thing. And this is, new cottage industry, and I think that's audiobooks, as you guys especially know, it's a humongously booming business right now, and just growing exponentially every year. And having narrators be able to sit in the comfort of their own home and narrate books, you can get a lot more, and Amazon has a lot more to sell this way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That actually is to everybody's benefit when that's the case. You're
Absolutely.
you're not limited. We used to the way we used to even get our books is our mom had she would go to the local library and she'd just bring one home, once a week or whatever. So we would just snatch it up and listen to it as quick as we could. So before she took it back, because you only had a couple days with it before you had to give it back. So
Right. Yeah, we did the same sort of thing. Listen to it in the car. We drove all over the place for different sports and blah blah blah.
Absolutely.
I was like the little cassette tape holder where you've got like, if it's a long book, there are like 8 cassette tapes in order and those little cutouts, and it closed up. It was I remember those.
That's awesome.
I mean, do you have a preferred genre when it comes to narrating, or like, do you find yourself like turning down any projects because you wouldn't be like personally interested in the content yourself?
No, not yet. I'm not. I think I'm just starting to get to that point in my career where I can actually turn things down now. At first, it's you just take what you get and you do the best you can with it, and it's just practice. And that's fine. I certainly haven't loved everything that I've recorded so far, but you need to practice. So you can do, on Audible, on ACX, you can put up whatever name you want. So it doesn't have to be under your name. You can just, come up with a pseudonym and then do a book you don't love, or it's not necessarily your style, but you need to practice. You need to just sit in a closet for 6 hours a day and talk to yourself into a microphone. So it doesn't really matter what that is. And it's good practice, actually, about trying to find motivation in characters that you aren't familiar with, that you don't connect with. So it's just good practice. Now I'm more to the point where I can start, seeing what I think might be iffy and kind of passing on that. But my preferred genre right now, I think I'm sort of carving out a niche for myself in sort of sarcastic sci-fi, military sci-fi, like Interstellar Gunrunner, and I'm doing Star Bounty for Rick Partlow. And I did Ashes of Eternity series for Jeremy Spires, and that's all the same sort of sarcastic first-person sci-fi military adventure kind of stuff. So I think that's my wheelhouse right now, I think.
I mean, your voice does kind of have like a swagger to it, which I like. I hear you and I just think Bodhi Drezik. That's just what I hear.
Right.
Oh, and I can't, it's hard for me to like disassociate that a little bit. I'm like, oh, that's just what you sound like to me. I feel like it's so fitting.
Thank you. I really connected with that series and that character in a way I haven't with anything else yet. And that one holds a special place in my heart.
Sure. Yeah, you were a great fit on that one. We definitely
appreciate that.
Talked that up in the podcast for sure when we reviewed that your voice for Bodhi was perfect for him. You definitely embodied that character very well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Is as far as voice acting and stuff goes, is kind of audiobook narration like your end goal, or would you be trying to move into, voice acting for TV or movies or video games or anything like that?
Oh, I absolutely am working on that currently, actually. I haven't gotten any gigs yet because it is incredibly competitive and it's
I bet
incredibly hard to break into. That one does require like agents and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm getting some demos going and that kind of thing, and kind of training up on that because it's, from what I can tell, wildly different than audiobook narrating. So it's a whole learning curve I haven't really reached the top on yet.
Cool. Are you trying to get into like shows or video games or?
I'm in Seattle, and so massive video game industry up here, and I would love to do some video game voices for sure.
Oh, but, yeah.
I mean, kind of like with starting on audiobooks right now, I'll take whatever just to see where it goes, see what I can do.
Yeah, no, and that's awesome. And that's awesome that you're able to even just by, saying you'll take whatever, but you're still very much so, I think, making a name for yourself by stacking these titles up under your belt. That's really cool.
Thank you. I'm trying.
Do you like when you get a book, do you like partition part of it off? Like, okay, Monday I'm going to do this bit, Tuesday I'm going to do this bit, and like, or do you just set like a time? Like, okay, I made it this far and I'm done for the day.
I do page counts depending on what the formatting of the book is. I try to do 40 to 50 pages a day. recording, and that usually ends up 15 to 20,000 words. So that's how I try to partition it up. And then so I guess actually let's step back a little bit. There's two parts to this. You got to prep the book ahead of time, and then you have to record it. And you can do both at the same time. You can be recording one book and prepping the next one in the series, like I'm doing right now with Star Bounty. So, you'll set a certain amount of time during the day to prep the next 50, 60, 100 pages. And then the next 4 to 6 hours, you'll sit in the booth or I'll sit in the booth and record 40, 50, 60, 70 pages. So that's sort of how that works. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. So you read ahead quite a bit then, obviously, so you know
you have
what's
to.
coming up.
Oh, you have to. Yeah.
We talked to Bronson Pinchot, and he doesn't do that at all, which blows my mind. I mean, I know he's been doing this a lot longer than you have, but personally, I find that like baffling that you could just bust it out like that.
Every narrator is going to have their own way of doing things. For me, I find I can get through more and faster, and I can kind of delve in and understand the characters a little better if I prep it ahead of time. And using an annotation thing in my iPad, I'll color different voices for different characters so I know what it is and I don't have to look too far ahead when I'm reading.
Mm-hmm. That's very smart.
And then so it's just easy to go through different characters. I mean, Bronson's been acting since I was, I don't know, 10. So he's
yeah.
The dude's he's a pro. So I'm not super surprised that he doesn't do that, because I'm sure he can recognize the characters for what they're supposed to be and just sort of do them.
Yeah, I mean, he has over 500 titles under his belt just on Audible alone. So yeah. He's got a little bit of practice.
Yeah, not a fair comparison to make.
Not quite yet. Give me a couple of years.
Yeah, we'll give you like 6 months and you'll be there.
Yeah. And start. Yeah, let's go.
You're right. I mean, I think what you just described would be, if this was something I was doing, I would do exactly what you do. That sounds like the work schedule, or the process I would go through as well. I'd want to know just a little ways ahead what's going on, so I can kind of mentally prepare for what I need to be reading, as well as character distinguishing as well. I think that makes the most sense to me also.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. And I've actually been in a position where I didn't read ahead far enough before I started recording a book, and then realized near the end of the book, when the author was doing the description, a more thorough description on one of the two main characters, oh, she's a lot older than I thought she was. So I had to go back and re-record her entire voice on all of her lines for the entire book, because the author actually wanted her 10 to 15 years older than I was portraying her.
Oh, wow.
That's not fun. That's just a waste of time. So I'd rather get all of that out of the way ahead of time, so I don't have to go re-record an entire book, which is not a lot of fun.
Right. Yeah. Well, especially when that's, I mean, if that's part of your livelihood, for sure, you don't want to have to do it more than once.
No. Timing is important. I've got enough booked out ahead of time that if I'm not hitting the marks all the time, someone's going to be late somewhere, and someone's not going to be happy.
Sure. So you said you had some acting in your background as well.
Yeah.
What did that entail?
I was a music theater actor.
Okay.
Here in Seattle, a little bit in New York. And yeah, I was a professional music theater actor, living off that, which was fun in my 20s, in my early 20s. It was a lot of fun.
Right.
I don't know where the energy came for that now, but yeah, I did that. A lot of being on stage. I did some emceeing. I'm an MC now a little bit. Just being on stage, singing, acting, dancing, the whole thing, which really is good training for audiobooks, honestly, because you got some pretty far out there characters, and being able to practice in front of 5,000 people and not making an idiot out of yourself, or being okay with making an idiot out of yourself in front of 5,000 people. It's even easier to do that just by yourself in a closet with a microphone.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like that would be very good prep. It sounds like that would be far more difficult than recording an audiobook, for sure.
Well, I would say yes and no. I would just say there's two different toolboxes you need for those things.
Oh, okay, sure.
One with being fine with being in front of 5,000 people and singing and dancing, and depending on what show you're doing, how much clothing you have on. And then then being okay with sitting in a booth by yourself for 4 to 6 hours a day and being completely alone, and that being okay. It takes some getting used to, but it's what I love to do now. So
Yeah, that's awesome that you've yeah, I just think it's so cool to hear, like, because we kind of asked, guys like Bronson and stuff, but again, like you said, Bronson, that was kind of his acting and stuff like that. It seemed like almost he acted like it was like a natural fit to just slide right into doing audiobooks. So it's so cool to hear kind of your starting out, and especially since it was so recent. I mean, it's pretty inspiring, to be honest, to hear.
thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. It's yeah, like I said, dream come true kind of situation. I didn't think I'd
Right.
ever be in this position. And then when you first start out, you got all those self-doubts and can I really do this? And that very first book, when you're sitting there reading to yourself and you're like, someone's going to pay me to do this? I'm talking into a microphone by myself. And then the worst part, at least for me, listening to yourself back for the first time. Like, you have to go and listen to everything you just did and
Right.
edit it and proofread it and all that kind of fun stuff. So no one, in my experience, loves hearing their own voice. But when you're doing this, you have to listen to your own voice, whether you want to or not. So getting over that little hump was kind of fun too.
Sure. Oh yeah, we've been through that just a little bit.
Oh,
Because
of course you have. Yeah.
we usually don't do a lot of editing or anything like that, but we've had a couple hiccups in the past. Yeah. We've had a couple of hiccups in the past where the internet wasn't so good, so I had to take both layers and layer it back together. So I had to sit and listen to the whole hour-long episode, and the whole time I'm just like, is that really what I sound like? Is that how people hear me?
Exactly. And then you're thinking, or at least when you're recording it, it's like that's you think your voice is coming out a specific way in a specific kind of character,
Yeah.
and then you listen to it back, and that didn't play at all.
Right.
You think you're just emoting like crazy, just tons of energy, and no, you might as well just be in a library talking to yourself. It's kind of frustrating.
We thought that was an interesting little bit of insight too that we've gotten from a couple other people we talked to, is that when it comes to audiobook narration versus acting or some other form like that, you're pretty much stuck, because even if you think the way something is written isn't written very well, or maybe not how you would have said it, your job is not to determine that, right? Your job is just to read the lines as they're put in front of you, pretty much.
That is exactly it. Yeah. It's like we were talking about before with books you might not completely connect with or love.
Sure.
That's why you gotta do the ones you don't love, because it's great practice for trying to get into the author's head, or the character's head, of where the author wants that character to go. Whether you think it should go there or not, it's not up to you. I know I'm not talented enough to write a book. I'm throwing that out there. I'm not. I can't do that. They're way more talented at me than coming up with characters that they want. It's just my job to try to figure out what that is and take it from their perspective and what they want it to be, not what I want it to be.
Sure. Well, and I feel like, at least from our perspective, that stuff comes across as well. I mean, even if you're maybe less experienced than a lot of other guys might be, you can tell you're you're trying to embody these characters as they come up, and that comes across to us as the listeners, is that you are putting your all into these characters. Because it very well comes across with a lot of other books we've listened to, when someone's just phoning it in and they're just reading the lines as written. Characters be damned, doesn't matter. That stuff comes across as well. So
Oh, thank you. I'm with you. I've definitely heard books where the narrator feels like it sounds like they'd rather be doing anything else other than reading that book.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's like, oh no, you've got a paycheck coming, so you got to do it, but you don't want to do this book.
Right. Yeah.
So one of the fun parts of being sort of new is I can just sort of pick and choose, I guess.
That's one reason we kind of started our podcast too, is hopefully to weed some of that stuff out, not let that stuff slide through the cracks as often.
Yeah, that's great. I think I've got to commend you guys. That's having an audiobook podcast. That is not a common thing. You're one of the first that I can find. That's impressive.
Well, we appreciate that, and we kind of just kicked the idea around because we thought, a lot of people do book review podcasts or videos or what have you. And we thought, well, neither one of us likes to read at all, but we
I don't know how.
but we like to listen to audiobooks. I mean, that's I don't know if a day goes by when I don't have something on, at least, as far as audiobooks. And we thought the same thing. We thought there's nobody's reviewing them as an audiobook form, which to us was kind of important because not only do we not really enjoy reading, but it's finding those books that you can listen to on a daily basis or while you're working or what have you. That was kind of where the whole idea came from. So
that's a great idea. Definitely a vacuum in the market. So thumbs up on filling that void. That's fantastic.
Well, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think we wanted something kind of unique too. We didn't just want to be like lost in the sea of podcasts that are just like, comedy based, just two dudes hanging out.
Right.
We kind of wanted a direction to take that we both felt confident in, because we both been listening to audiobooks pretty much like as soon as probably like since I was like 5 or 6, like pretty much our whole lives. So I mean, this is an area I feel pretty confident in. That like I kind of know what's good and what's bad, at least to my taste.
Sure. Well, that's why people listen to you, right? Because you have an opinion, and opinions are good to have, and everyone's got them. So strong opinions. Well, what is it? Strong opinions loosely held, something like that.
Sounds good to me. And I mean, we've also been kind of branching off a little bit lately. We do some anime stuff, and we've been kicking around the idea of doing some video game stuff. But again, because I mean, we both love video games, but the market is flooded with that stuff.
Oh my Lord.
It's everybody else, it seems like, is doing that. So we kind of thought if we try to at least carve out this little bit of a niche for ourselves and stick with it, I think is, because I mean, it's not like we're super popular or anything, but these were conversations we were going to have regardless of whether or not we were recording it. So it all just kind of worked out.
That's awesome. So Roger Clark must have been like Christmas for you guys on the Black Badge series.
Yeah, that was really, really cool. Like, still kind of can't believe that we got like early access. It still kind of blows my mind. And
that's awesome.
It was awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool.
So
yeah, we've had, I mean, even for being such a small podcast, we've had some very, very fortunate things happen to us so far. Even just with you offering to give us, grant us early access to books, to us that's like, Christmas morning gift.
Yeah,
it's so awesome.
the genuine glee that gives me, I think, can't really be expressed.
Oh, fantastic. I'll make sure you're on my mailing list going forward then. That's awesome.
We really, really appreciate that stuff. That was just kind of the icing on top, as far as doing this podcast. So
it seems like a great reason to do it all on its own. Free audiobooks, please. Give me.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Give the fat kid some candy, please.
So who are some narrators you guys like right now?
It's funny you asked that. We were actually talking last week about doing our top 5 here soon.
So give me a few. I don't want to like,
Bronson Pinchot, obviously. Yeah. I like Oliver Wyman is great. Scott Brick, also fantastic. What am I listening to right now?
Jeff Clark was really good as far as what he did in the Black Badge series.
I feel like that's not fair though, because he's in Red Dead
Arthur.
Redemption. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's like the perfect cowboy. It's cheating.
Yeah, those are great. I love Scott Brick, especially out of the ones you mentioned there. Have you heard his Dead Wake?
I don't think I have.
But the Sinking of the Lusitania, you should. It's fantastic. That's the one that really, that's the one of his that really got me hooked on him as a narrator.
Sure, his name comes up a lot if you scroll through Reddit or any of those other things, and see people ask who's a good narrator to listen to. His name almost always is in people's top 3. So
absolutely, he's like the guy. He's the famous guy.
We almost had him on the podcast.
Oh almost. My God. That would be a hell of a get, right?
Yeah, I know.
I was having a back and forth with his, I guess she's like his secretary or something, and we actually had it scheduled for him to come on.
I'll get out of
and and the day came up, and I say that we were kind of in the same spot where I'm like waiting for a Zoom contact or something like that, and nothing ever happened. And I emailed her and I said, hey, I thought today was supposed to be the day. And she said, well, you never emailed me back like you were supposed to. But that's not what happened. She was supposed to email me his contact stuff, and she never did. So it just kind of went by the wayside. But yeah,
sorry about that.
We were close. I mean, oh, trust me, don't be sorry, because we put these feelers out. I mean, honestly, I just put lines out everywhere and I hope it catch something. So
Sure. Cool.
The fact that we've even had, Bronson Pinchot and Oliver Wyman on the podcast was insane, because Oliver Wyman was the first one I reached out to, and he immediately was like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, wait, what? Are you sure?
Yeah, like, hang on.
That's awesome.
Well,
let's talk afterwards.
Ask people, they will come on. It's amazing.
Yeah. Who doesn't love talking about themselves? I mean, come on.
Right? I guess I never looked at it that way.
And it's fun promotion for what we're doing. Get your name out there a little bit and get to talk to two dudes who are really into audiobooks. That's, I mean, what's better? That's awesome. Have you guys heard of George Guidall at all?
Maybe.
He's like the godfather of this industry. He's got over 1,000 books. He's been around forever. Like, he did Stephen Pressfield's Gates of Fire, which if you haven't listened to, you need to. It's outstanding. But he's been doing this. He's been doing this since we were all listening to audiobooks when they were on tape back in the 80s.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we'll definitely have to check that out.
He's outstanding.
I like Roy Dotrice too. I know he's not around anymore, but like his early work in the Game of Thrones is so good.
Oh, that's him. Oh, yeah.
And I mean, a couple of the books that I have, nobody else can even get anymore because they swap the narrators on them.
Yeah, that's always a fun little game.
Yeah, it's kind of weird sometimes. We've run into that a couple times. Like, there are versions that we have that are older that like the general public can't get a hold of anymore.
Right, like the R.C. Bray Martian that got re-recorded with Will Wheaton.
Yeah.
We also have the old Dexter books from the beginning that were recorded by Nick Landrum, which you can no longer get a hold of anymore. Because the author went back and decided he did a better job at recording it, so he re-recorded all of the old ones, and now that's the only one you can get. Yeah,
it's a funnily common thing. I'm actually, speaking of Bronson, he did a few books in the Cerberus series. What's the author on that? That is Andy Peliquin. They did like the first 2 books of 12 for Aethon. And then I'm re-recording those and the rest of the series.
Oh, no way.
Next year, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what happened there, but hey, works for me.
Right, yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
And he's not exactly hurting for work, so.
No. Yeah. So did you like listen to Bronson Pinchot's performances to see how he voiced the characters and see like kind of what you would change, or are you just kind of like coming at it clean slate and just approaching it how you would always approach a book?
I'm not listening to his version of it at all. I don't want it colored. I'm sure he did a fantastic job. He always does. But if I'm going to do it, I need to do it from my perspective and how I see the characters. So no, I'm not going to listen to him. I'll just prep him like any other book. And if the producer on it likes it, great, I'll go forward. And if not, then I'll change some things up.
Yeah, that sounds like probably the best move. Yeah, to not front load yourself with the way he did it, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm sure. Like I said, I'm sure he did a fantastic job with it. But if they want it re-recorded, then I'm just going to do it my way.
One of the this is an interesting one too. I find one of our earliest kind of books we listened to was the Harry Potter series when it first came out on tape. The Jim Dale recordings.
Heck yeah, that guy's gone.
Yeah, for sure. But I noticed a lot of people say, because I think somebody else recorded it as well. The whole series. Can't think of the name off the top of my head, but it was also, I see that happen a lot on Reddit and stuff where people cite the other narrator, and I'm like, I've never even heard that one, but you guys are missing out if you've never listened to Jim Dale. I mean,
Stephen Fry? Was it Stephen Fry?
yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly who it was. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which I mean, I'm sure he does a good job, but
yeah, that dude's
I mean,
a god too. He's been around forever. He's amazing.
right.
But yeah, the Jim Dale version, like book 4, The Goblet of Fire, he got a world record for the amount of audiobook voices or amount of voices in character voices in one audiobook for that.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
I guess
wow.
that does make sense with the 2 other schools there.
Sure.
Yeah, that dude. It's just amazing. Something to strive for.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say there you go. That's what you can look forward to becoming one of these days there, Garrett.
Yes. Guinness Book of World Records for audiobook voices. I don't know how anyone tops Dale on that, but what the heck.
Just so kind of keeping it all in the loop here a little bit, you've mentioned that you play D&D as well. Is that
Me?
right?
No, my son does.
Your son does. Okay.
My son's very into Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah.
So do you play with him? I mean, I guess that's what I assumed when you were saying that. Is that like a weekly thing you guys do?
No, he's got his own club, and he has like 2 separate campaigns going at one time with different groups and that kind of stuff. But no, I used to work for Wizards of the Coast, but
What?
Oh yeah, but I've never honestly really gotten into D&D.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. See, I misunderstood when you had emailed me that one time saying that on Friday that your son was playing. I assumed you meant that you were part of the game.
Got it. No. Oh, I understand. No, we hosted a D&D. He has a weekly D&D club that he plays with, and we were hosting it at our house that time. So trying to do a podcast with you guys up here
Gotcha.
with a bunch of 12-year-olds downstairs yelling at each other was not going to work too well.
Well, dang it, that just derails my line of questioning I had, but that's
no,
all right.
bring it. I want to hear what you're going to ask.
Well, we more recently kind of got into D&D because when we were younger, we just assumed it was a bunch of nerds, playing Dungeons and Dragons, like a bunch of nerds doing that. But just a few years ago, we kind of got into D&D as well, and crazy fun. I mean, we've had so much fun doing it, and a lot of people's kind of introduction to D&D these days, is from the Critical Role podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just curious what your take on that was, as far as, they are this group of voice actors, obviously playing these characters. And I was curious if voice acting was something you did while you played as well.
That's a really good question. I'm really sorry I'm not into D&D and can't really answer that too well. I would say that if I was doing it, yeah, I probably would. I mean, any opportunity to do fun character voices, why the hell not?
Sure. Yeah, that's well, I guess you'll have to see if it's something you could get into, because we're big nerds now into playing it. So we are the nerds now.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, is it really even nerdy anymore? Like, I know so many people playing it. Like, I'm in my 40s, and I know plenty of other guys in their 40s still playing this.
Oh yeah. No, and I think it's far less stigmatized now than it's ever been, which is kind of the way things have gotten with the internet. The information is just so much more easily accessible. So I think it is much less stigmatized now.
Absolutely. And then you've got shows like Stranger Things, where it's like a main, foundation of the entire show.
Right. And it actually has, Stranger Things has actually, this guy, I was watching a video the other day, this guy was showing Google searches for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, and it was like with the release of each season of Stranger Things, the search peaked. So because of the show, more and more people are definitely, maybe not necessarily playing it, but they are showing much more interest in it than they have in the past. So
cool. That's good. Anything that brings people together face to face to talk about things and play games together and not have it be on a screen, I am absolutely in favor of.
Right. And because my brother and I live in different places, and even when he lived over in Denver, we actually were able to play online these days, which is still kind of nice that you can have that interaction. And We've used a couple different websites though that allow us to still have characters on screen, and I can make maps on screen and all this kind of stuff. That's so it definitely still brings people together too, even if you do have to have a screen in between you.
Absolutely. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
That's really good.
It is pretty cool.
Very, very cool.
Have you checked out Critical Role at all, just out of curiosity?
No, I haven't. No.
Yeah.
But
Honestly,
I'm going to now.
Well, I don't know if you're missing a whole lot, in my opinion. But just, I mean, to me, it is almost a bit of a bummer because a few other people we've gotten in our group, you know, they started out by watching that show or listening to it as a podcast, and so then they come to play with us. And when we started, I hadn't even watched that show. And then I get in Critical Role, they do it like this. And in Critical Role, and I'm like, this is not Critical Role, okay? We are playing our game, okay?
Right.
Can you chill a little bit?
Right.
I cannot do voices like the voice actors can do as the DM, so please give me a break.
Hey, do you guys ever listen to the Litperg book or Lit RPG books?
No.
Oh, if you're into that kind of stuff, you should. It's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, and Athon actually has ask Rhett for some codes or something. There's so many Lit RPG books out there.
Really?
Oh my gosh, it's a massively growing industry. Yeah.
Definitely gonna.
I guess I've listened to kind of one like The Legend of Drizzt. I think it's probably along the same lines.
Okay. Did you like it?
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, he's like I'm pronouncing that right, Ryan? Is it Drizzt?
Yeah. Yeah, those are the R.A. Salvatore.
Yeah, he's like like a running D&D character.
Totally. Yeah, there's tons of those kinds of books. Tons and tons.
I'll have to check that out. And you said Rhett might be the one to be able to get those, huh?
Yeah, Athon is really building themselves on those and fantasy and sci-fi. And for anyone listening who doesn't know, Athon Audio or Athon Publishing is a publishing company out of Texas, I believe, that does a lot of. They're new. They're an independent book company, but they're growing really, really fast, and they do a lot of audiobooks as well. And they specialize in lit RPG and sci-fi and fantasy.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely all stuff right up our alley. So
there you go.
Have you had the opportunity to do like a full cast audiobook yet where like each character is individually voiced?
I have.
Oh, actually. You have?
Yeah, this past January. It's not out yet. Actually, I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to say about it.
So if you can't talk about it, that's all good.
Oh no, I'm sure I can. I just want to be kind of vague about it. It was with my first Amazon or Audible original, and it's a full cast, and should be out pretty soon, I hope. It's called No Kindness Too Soon. It was a lot of fun to work on. It's challenging because we all recorded it from different studios all around the country at the same time. But it was like an audio drama kind of situation. It was a really fantastic experience. I can't wait for the next one, honestly.
We'll have to check that out. Because in the past, we feel like full cast stuff is very hit or miss in our opinion.
Yes.
So I'll be curious to see how that went.
I think in my opinion, a lot of it has to do with chemistry between the actors. And if the book has a lot of chemistry, and if you guys are all on the same page, feeding off the same energy, whatever, then it works fantastic. And I think the one we just did is going to be really, really good. Oftentimes, also, just in my opinion, you can have a lot of celebrities who maybe aren't audiobook people, just doing it because, hey, it's a big celebrity name, and why the hell not?
Sure.
But they don't get audiobooks, or they don't do a lot of voiceover stuff, or it's weird to sit in a studio by themselves and talk to nobody really. And that can feel a little funky. That comes off as a little clunky. Sometimes you can tell people are doing it just because they're doing it, not because they love it. But I think this one that's going to come out really is going to be fantastic. It felt really good at the time.
So is that when you do a full cast like that, and you're saying, you guys obviously each use your own recording studios, is it something where you just kind of you record your lines and then the other person records their lines and so on and so forth, and then an editor puts them all together at the end?
Sort of, kind of. Everybody's recording themselves, but you can hear everybody else at the same time. So,
Okay, that was
It-
okay. That was my next
yeah,
question.
imagine like the old radio, like 1920s. Everyone's standing around a microphone talking,
Right.
and everyone has their own parts, but just sort of split up. So everyone's still doing that, but everyone is recording themselves, and then we all
Sure.
send that into the editor. So we still play against each other, and have energy and reaction and character choices, motivation, all that kind of fun stuff.
Sure.
But then the editor eventually puts it all together from your recordings. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I
And
was
you'll
just
do like
wondering
different takes. Yeah. Sorry about that.
because well, I feel like I've listened to a couple where it almost seemed like everybody was just reading their lines on their own, not hearing the other people, and then an editor puts it together at the end. Because I've definitely heard full casts where it didn't sound like the other person had a clue what the person before them had said, and the tones are completely off, and so that's very cool to hear that you guys were at least all. It was more like you're all kind of sitting around a room recording it together.
Yeah, that's what this one was. I have no doubt that what you're talking about was absolutely true. They probably just got their lines and recorded them and sent them in.
Right.
That seems like a lot easier, honestly, for the publishing company.
And I'm sure it is, but it definitely, the final product though, I think that definitely comes across because I've heard some pretty bad, full casts. So
Yeah.
and
It
it's
can be pretty hit or
unfortunate.
miss, yeah.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because at least when you hear these ones that are really good, it's almost as if you have a movie just kind of playing in the background. If you have the added sounds and things like that, it can be a really, really cool experience. So when they kind of just phone them in, it is kind of a bummer in my opinion.
I agree. Agreed.
Yeah, we'll have to check that one out when your guys' comes out too.
Yeah, I'll let you know if I get any codes, which I kind of doubt that I will. But either way, I'll let you know when it's out.
Yeah, at least let us know when it's released so we can check it out for sure.
Happily.
What do you just out of curiosity then, Garrett, what do you do on your when you're not working and recording? What's your downtime stuff?
Parenting is a lot.
I know the feeling of that one, sure.
Oh yeah, congratulations. Yeah, there's a lot of parenting, a lot of normal, house stuff. Fun, I exercise a lot, like I do triathlons and stuff, and then I just took my son backpacking, so a lot of, you're in the Pacific, or in the Pacific Northwest, so you got to take advantage of that. So do a lot of outdoor stuff. Yeah, I don't know, it's not a whole lot of time these days for, coming off the whole pandemic and everything, it's just, it feels weird to try to get back into, this is work time and this is playtime. It just all sort of melds together into this conglomeration of, 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there of doing whatever. Which is a very long-winded answer of saying, I don't know.
No, it's funny you say that because I feel like my answer is the same to some people. Yeah, when they're like, "What do you do for fun?" Yeah, after the pandemic, you kind of like, I guess I just kind of sit around the house like I did.
It's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Sometimes I turn the TV on. Sometimes I fire up a video game, like you said, for about 15, 20 minutes. Then I'm like, I guess I'll go find something else to do for a while.
Exactly. Is it Friday? Is it Saturday? Who knows? It's all the same.
Yeah, no kidding. That's cool though that you how long have you lived in Seattle?
Oh, I've been here for almost 30 years.
Oh wow, right on.
Yeah,
we both
1993.
Cool. We both grew up in Eastern Oregon, so we're not super far away from there, and we have
cool.
family that lives up in that area. So
where-ish in Oregon?
You know where La Grande is?
I do.
Yeah. So we both grew up right outside La Grande.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. And then we have family that lives up in Tacoma, so we definitely know that area that you're at pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Spent a lot of time in Tacoma.
Right.
How long have you guys been doing this podcast?
Oh man.
When did we record our first episode? Almost 3 years ago now?
Yeah, I
fantastic.
think so.
Yeah. Starship Troopers was our very first episode we recorded.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That is really great. There's talk about I honestly haven't listened to the audiobook on that, but that movie, man, that's one of those that felt silly at the time, but then it just sort of gets better with age, if you know what I mean. Like it becomes more relevant as it gets older. It's it's good stuff.
The interesting thing too is that the movie is not very similar to the book.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's actually
they're way different.
Yeah, they actually are very different, but
All
it's very interesting. They took a lot of creative liberties on the movie, but in a very good way. The two, I feel like it's a situation where the two, even though they share a name, they stand very well on their own, even though they share the same name, which is not always the case. You know, sometimes the saying is always, "Oh, the book is better," but I feel like in this case, because they're so different, they both stand super good apart as well.
Yeah. Interesting. Huh. I'll have to check out the audiobook. That's cool stuff.
Yeah, definitely check it out because they are two very different stories for the most part. So you do get two different experiences.
Is it still like that? Excuse me. That sort of militarized, like civilian population, and you can only become a citizen if you join the military and all that kind of situation?
Yeah.
Cool.
That stuff is definitely where they got most of the inspiration for the movie. But then the movie is definitely more of a kind of, you know, riffing on the way the idea of that. Whereas the book is much more serious about it.
That makes sense.
It's serious and kind of like glorifying it, I guess. And the book is a lot more about like kind of like the mundane in and outs of like him taking care of his power armor than like actually going out and fighting the bugs.
Huh. All right, cool. I'll have to check that out. That sounds fun.
Yeah. And it's a little more interesting too, because in the book, they are not just bugs like they are in the movie. They are, you know what StarCraft is, the game StarCraft?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we feel like StarCraft, where they got the kind of initial take on it, was much more from the book of Starship Troopers, with the Terran obviously being the humans, and then the Zerg and Protoss being a split of the kind of bugs that they fight in the actual book.
Look at you just pulling those words out of your mouth. That's awesome.
We're nerds.
Yeah, again, we're huge nerds. Yeah, sorry.
No, not at all, dude. That's awesome. I wish I had recall like that. That's good stuff. Cool deal. What else can I tell you?
I wanted to ask you, like, I know you do a lot of these like space globe-trotting adventures. How do you find a voice for like an alien race that would have no reference point?
That is a real good question. How have I done that in the past? You just sort of treat it like any other character, to be honest. You don't look at the outside or sort of the wrapping of what you think it might look at. You look at what their motivation is. What do they want? What's going on with their race, with their planet? Is it in danger? Is it blowing up? Do they need to take over this other planet because they're all dying out, or because they're a bunch of assholes? I don't know. But for me, it becomes much more about the motivations of the character. This is such a douchey thing to say, but it's true. The motivation behind the character and what they actually want and why. And then at the end, you can throw on the frills at the end, right? If you want to make it sound more like a bird or more like a lizard or something like that. It's much easier when the author says, you know, describes it as bird-like or as octopus-like or whatever. And then you can sort of go from there. But if there's nothing specific said about how the author sees that character, or how he or she sees the voice of that character, you just sort of do what you can to kind of go from the motivation and what is the history of that race and that planet, and what does that look like, and what would it be to live there, and what the size of the thing. So it's just any other character, really. You just don't think about it in terms of what it's going to look like at the end, but you got to build it up from the inside.
It really surprises me you don't play D&D, because your world building is so good. I mean, you'd make an amazing DM, to be honest.
Well, thank you. I'll ask my son about that.
These guys said I'd be good at this, so I'm taking over.
the fact that you also have if you have a 12-year-old who already has a group that's into playing, you automatically already have a group built. That's our biggest problem, is finding people to play with. So
got it. Yeah, not a problem up here.
Just out of curiosity, then when you're setting up those voices, has there ever been a time where you maybe record a couple lines and then you shoot it over to the producer or whoever and say, how did this sound? Any thoughts?
Yeah. So how that goes is you do the first 15 minutes of a book, at least on ACX, and it's just sort of industry standard from what I can tell now. You'll do the whole thing, ask any questions. The author or producer will give you the answers to whatever questions you have. So that's kind of the prep stuff that you take care of ahead of time. So they know, so how to say specific words, what characters are supposed to sound like, their backstories, all that kind of stuff. Some authors are really, really great at it and give you really long, detailed characterizations of everything going on in the book, and that helps immensely. And some are like, I don't know, just do it like that, I guess, or think of it in terms of specific actors or actresses, and that can work too.
Sure. What do you find is easier, if they tell you how to do it or if they let you run with it?
The more detail I can get on how the author sees their characters, the better for me.
Right. Yeah, that's what I would think. Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm sort of like halfway through and like questions like, I can't really go back and ask now because then I have to go back and redo everything.
Right. Right.
So you just sort of, and that's why they hire professionals. So they have their version of it, and then the producer can have their version of it, and then the narrator can have their version of it. So you'll send in the 15 minutes and the first 15 minutes, and they say, yay, no, yes, but with, these changes. And you kind of go from there. It's just sort of understood that once it's in the narrator's hands, it's ours now. Like, you can have your characterizations and your way of looking at it. But after you give us all the information, we kind of run it through our little algorithm in our head. This is how it's going to turn out. And because that's how I see it, and that's how I can perform it best.
Right. Well, I mean, obviously, I would think at some point too, you have to be able to, the author's got to realize that maybe not every narrator can do 30 unique voices. I mean, at some point there has to be a little bit of like, okay, yeah, that'll work. Even though I had 30 characters in my head, I do got to remember you're just one guy. So
yeah, that is the thing. And interestingly enough, the more experienced authors understand that. Like they will understand it. The new authors who have this amazing story in their head and they try to get it down, they think that you should be able to do all these different characters. And if you don't do it exactly how they see it in their head, that it's wrong. And that I've been in that situation that can create all kinds of problems.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
But, normally with the experienced authors, they're more understanding about it, and they frankly do their characters a little better just because they've been doing it longer.
Sure. Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I did a couple young adult Halloween anthologies a couple years in a row, and that was an experience. I think they turned out really well and they sold relatively well, but these are authors who they're first time authors, honestly, and they see things a certain way and I see things a certain way, and they want a level of detail that it is physically impossible for me to give, and that's just, it is what it is.
Yeah, that seems like it would be a little bit of a challenge if somebody, like I said, they expect you to be a full cast on your own. It's probably not going to happen most of the time.
No.
Do you find yourself gravitating towards books with more characters or less characters? Not that you really have any say in it, but I mean, is it better when you come across a book where there's maybe 4 or 5 main characters versus they're going to be talking to 50 different people throughout the story?
Yeah, I love characters. Give me as many as I can get at.
Right on.
I love doing the voices. I love doing the whole thing. I try to make them all come across separately. It doesn't always work, especially with the female voices. For me, is a little tough. There's only so much I can do, being a dude, and so you do the best you can with it. But it's, again, go from the motivation of what each character wants, not necessarily the surface level stuff, and then hopefully, usually, the character voice will sort of come out of that. But yeah, as many characters I can get. I love them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Which is, I mean, good, because hopefully most stories will have a lot of characters to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the character conversations and action stuff is a lot more fun for me than sort of the expository explanation for 20 pages of what this particular planet looked like 100 years ago.
Right.
That can get kind of dry.
Hmm.
But there's some people who really kill it with that stuff, like nonfiction. There's narrators who do nothing but nonfiction and textbooks, and I am in awe of people that can do that.
Yeah, that seems like it would be a little hard to kind of stay excited for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's tough. It is tough.
We reviewed one book where there was only 2 characters in the whole thing.
Whoa.
It was actually a sci-fi book, and right, wasn't that it, Bo? There was only 2 characters through the whole thing.
Oh man, what was that called?
I can't even think of it off the top of my
Like
head.
The Descent or something like that. Hang on.
No, it was the Luminous Dead.
There you go. Yeah.
Which had a
Right.
super cool title. But yeah, 2 characters through the entire book. That's it.
My lord.
Yeah. And we kind of went easy on the narrator because we didn't think she had enough, to even go off of. I mean,
Sure.
it wasn't necessarily her fault that there's only two voices and they're both female of the same age. So that's not really her fault. Yeah.
Yeah. You gotta give us something to work with.
Exactly. Well, yeah, and we think she did the best she possibly could with what she was given. So
Sure. Yeah, it's that can get tough when you have characters very similar to each other in age or nationality or whatever, and that can get a little tough to try to keep things separate.
Yeah.
Keep it interesting. Sorry.
Just out of curiosity, going back to the if you were trying to get into like video game voice acting and stuff, what kind of games would you want to be a part of in the long run? Maybe obviously in the beginning, you just want to get your foot in the door, but in the long run, what would be your kind of thing?
That is very specific. I mean, I would do anything I could to be part of the Red Dead Redemption universe. I mean,
right.
Please, God, I'll do that for free. If anyone's out there's listening, ask me, I'll do it for free. Yeah, I mean that would be amazing. That would be really amazing. But just kind of, I don't know. I'm not that picky. I guess I'd do kind of whatever.
Sure.
I mean, Red Dead Redemption is an interesting touch point because all of that stuff is mocapped, so they're acting it at the same time that they do the voice acting, which I think is really impressive.
Yeah, that's a good point. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's I mean, I don't know why, because I guess just because the Black Badge series, I just looked into that and how what all the stuff they had to go through to do all that stuff for Red Dead, and it looked like a lot of work. Wearing those goofy suits with the little balls all over them.
Yeah.
Doing like really intense, dramatic scenes like that. I don't know how you could keep a straight face.
I couldn't tell you. Being super professional and doing a lot. I don't know. That would be amazing.
You'd have to. I mean, I watched a video of the guy who did Smaug in the Hobbit.
I was just going to bring that up. Benedict Cumberbatch doing Smaug. Yeah, that was ridiculous looking.
Seeing those videos of him doing the mocap trying to act like a dragon, it's a little silly when you see the mocap. I mean, obviously the final product is amazing, but the mocap, I don't know how he kept a straight face doing it.
I don't know how they do that with Marvel movies, which basically just a big green screen behind 2 or 3 characters, and they're reacting to some giant thing in front of them that's not really there. I don't know how you do that, to be perfectly honest.
Sure. That brings up an interesting question I'd like to ask you then. So we are not really very into superhero movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the Marvel movies are kind of the most egregious for that these days. Is that they almost too heavily rely on the CGI, in my opinion.
Totally.
Versus there being anything of real substance. I mean, do you think that comes through in those final products, that there is nothing actually standing beside them sometimes? It's all going to be done in post.
I think you're right. I think there's a massive over reliance on CGI. And I think up until this point, they've done a pretty good job, especially the Infinity War and Endgame movies. They did a really good job of personifying that and actually having emotions and really good acting. And I mean, it took 10 years to get to that point. So you know what's going on with these characters. So you're emotionally invested. But now that they're moving on to phase 4 and introducing a lot of new characters that maybe most of us have never heard of before, that it's less effective. It just seems more bland and played out, and you're just getting ready for next product. It's less getting involved in the story. It's more about, well, this is next, so let's set this up over here, and it doesn't really matter if the characterizations are great or not because we know people are going to watch it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's just, I mean, switching gears a little bit here to movie stuff, obviously,
Sure.
but I think it's a kind of a bummer too, because I probably don't plan on watching like the new Jurassic Park movies because I'm not that
Because
interested
why?
in them anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, because to come from something so iconic as the original Jurassic Park that had the combination of that early form CGI with, you know, real live animatronic things and the weight of that movie, that stuff felt pretty real. But
Absolutely.
these days it's just so spectacle that we know you can do good CGI. There's no doubt in my mind that, you know, young kids even can do great CGI with the technology these days, but the way they put it all together, just it feels like CGI now. Gone, I feel like, are the days of like the Lord of the Rings original trilogy where the CGI was so perfectly utilized to where it, you know, was very seamless with the live action stuff. Whereas today it's pretty obvious what all is CGI.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's an over reliance on CGI.
Yeah.
Like you were mentioning Jurassic Park, there was a little bit, but it was very limited.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so it worked in seamlessly, and it wasn't an over reliance on it. And they were actually reacting to big robots or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, now especially with the new Jurassic Parks, you can just sort of tell, right? Just in the same way that the original series, Star Wars series, it was all animatronic and
Mhm.
puppets, and it felt real. And then you got the prequel trilogy, which is so smooth and pretty and CGI-ish that it doesn't feel as real. You can't get as caught up in it, and you can't identify with it as much. So there's less stakes. So I guess it just has, at least for me, it was, I don't know, it wasn't as effective. And I think you're right. I think Marvel's doing that. I mean, God, Justice League, the DC universe, I was so much CGI, it felt like watching a cartoon.
Mhm.
And frankly, I'd rather just watch the animation of it than that.
Yeah, I feel, yeah, if you're gonna go that step to where almost the whole movie is CGI anyways, just make a full CGI movie. So
Yeah.
I don't have to depict, oh, okay, yeah, that's a real person and everything around them is fake. Just go ahead and make them CGI too. Make a cartoon out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably would
And the
be
movies
more
that,
entertaining.
yeah, totally. And the movies that don't rely so much on CGI, like, okay, this is a deep cut, Pacific Rim.
Oh
It
yeah.
was
Okay.
I
there
like
was
that movie.
absolutely some CGI in that, but all of the humans in the Jaegers, that was an actual set, and they were actually moving and actually had water thrown on them, and it was hard for them to do it, and you felt that. As opposed to the next Pacific Rim movie, which was all CGI, and it was like, I don't, it's a cartoon, whatever.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And you can tell, I mean, obviously if some actors are really, really good, they can, you know, put that weight behind the CGI things they're doing. But there's nothing like you're saying with the Pacific Rim. When those guys are trying to move those foot pedals and things, you can see that the weight of that is
Yep.
actually on there. I mean, I feel like that's what's missing from a lot of these movies these days is there's no weight, there's no stakes, there's no anything like that that makes it feel even realistic very well.
I totally agree. And you brought up the Lord of the Rings, and I think a perfect example of that is Lord of the Rings versus the Hobbit movies.
Yep. Yeah.
Mhm.
Aside from taking a small kid's book, that's what it was supposed to be, and then adding all of this extra crap into it to make, a trilogy, it was all CGI. And you could
Yeah.
tell it. I mean, you didn't really care as much as the first one, where you got the good characterizations, but it was real. Like just the CGI of the orcs in that versus the Uruk-hai in the first movie,
Mhm.
Right.
and how that was all prosthetic. It was all actual actors in super heavy makeup, but it looked real as opposed to the CGI sort of bland, smooth, glowy look to it that just didn't feel particularly threatening.
Yeah, I was actually amazed when the Hobbit trilogy came out. I didn't know that Peter Jackson did both of them. I automatically assumed, oh, there's no way he would stoop that low, but he did.
Yeah, you got to figure there's got to be a contractual thing in there somewhere.
Probably.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah, but it is a far cry from the original, Lord of the Rings trilogy, to that Hobbit trilogy. It's because the original trilogy is so good, and that's one of those few movies where I would tell somebody like, hey, look, if you don't want to read a super long book to get a great story, watch the movies, because those are some of the few movies where I can say the movies depicted the book so well that you'd be okay by just watching the movies.
Yeah, exactly. Can you think of any other books like that were as good in the movies as they were in the books?
I mean, off the top of my head, maybe not. I would say, though, with that Hobbit trilogy, I would almost tell people to go back and watch the whatever it was, the 90s cartoon of the Hobbit.
Leonard Nimoy?
Yeah. Because that does a much better job than the new Hobbit trilogy of actually portraying the story.
Right. No, I get you.
Yeah,
and then there's the Watership Down movie that, there's the Watership Down movie. Did you ever see that one? The 1970s, 80s Watership Down?
The cartoon one?
Gives kids nightmares.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure I watched that in school.
You did?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they showed us that in school, and it was terrifying.
Oh my God.
I remember reading the book, but I don't remember watching that.
Yeah. Probably wasn't allowed anymore by the time you came through, because it was pretty bad.
It was terrifying.
Letters.
Yeah.
The
main character gets shot. That's always fun for a kid.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Well, now I have to watch
this.
Yeah. I don't even think today they would allow the book in school, would they?
Oh, sure they do.
Do they really? Oh, okay. Because it seems like things are so tame in school these days.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe depending on the district. So what else can I answer for you? Yeah.
Sorry, I was muted there. My wife came in the room with the dog, so sorry.
That's all right.
Quite all right.
I think
that's a good. Actually, I guess I put that question back on you, Garrett. What is a book that you can think equally portrays a movie, or in movie form? You could recommend the movie as easily as the book. Can you think of one off the top of your head?
That is not an easy question. This is why I'm not a lawyer, because normally lawyers don't ask questions without knowing the answers to them. I don't have an answer ready for you on this one. I think the Lord of the Rings is a perfect example. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Yeah, and it's one of the few. I mean, yeah, it's one of the few. Because they do exist, and we try to, because we've done a couple episodes on the podcast where we compare a movie to a book, and obviously we don't want to just be those guys. The book's always better, because then there's no reason for us to make the episodes.
Sure.
One of the ones we did though was The Shining. And
oh yeah, of course.
That's
Are you talking the Jack Nicholson movie or the miniseries that came later?
We did the movie, just the Jack Nicholson movie.
Cool.
And we were thinking about trying to look at the miniseries later, because I had read some stuff that Stephen King did not like Stanley Kubrick's depiction of the book. And that's why the miniseries exists, because he thought that it could be done differently and more accurately to the book. Because for anybody who doesn't really know, the Shining movie and the Shining book are very similar to the Starship Troopers movie and book, where basically the similarities stop at the fact that there's a family at a hotel. That's about it. I mean,
at the Overlook.
Exactly. So
I knew they were different. I didn't realize they were that different. That's cool.
Yeah, they're pretty different too.
Good to know.
Stanley Kubrick took a lot of kind of creative liberty, which is unsurprising.
And I feel like his choice of actors is just very strange because, like, the woman that's his wife is just, some of the faces she makes in the movie are just truly atrocious.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I know that movie is very loved, and I didn't watch it until, I guess, a couple years ago. I didn't watch it like kind of further back, and I came to the book first, and I really enjoyed the book, and I just kind of found the movie to be kind of a letdown. It didn't instill like that creeping dread that the book was very good at. Like, that something is just a little bit off with this hotel.
Interesting. Yeah, Stephen King he's a perfect example of really good books that are almost impossible to make into really good movies.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah.
I think this last It was pretty darn close. And then
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Shawshank Redemption, I think, is a really good example of one that actually does better than the story. The movie is incredible.
Yeah. I've seen the movie. Actually, I've never listened to the book, so maybe that's something I'll have to check out, is the Shawshank Redemption book.
Yeah, Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. It's a short story that they kind of fleshed out and made a full movie out of.
Interesting.
But it's for, at least for me, it's one of those that if it comes on during the day, I stop and I sit and watch it, no matter what else is going on.
Right. Yeah. I'll be curious. We recently did Dr. Sleep by Stephen King too, and then they obviously made that
With Ewan,
with Ewan McGregor. Yeah, he made that movie. So I'd be curious, since the movie and the book are pretty different on The Shining, I'll be curious to see if that translates over as well to that Dr. Sleep, because I mean, the way that they depicted it in the movie of The Shining, that character moving forward, it seems like it would be a lot more difficult than the way that they did it in the book, because in the book, Danny is more of a focus than in the movie. So
I didn't know that. Cool. Did you like the book?
Oh yeah, we definitely like the book.
Dr. Sleep is pretty good.
Good.
Yeah.
I mean, it is kind of like new age Stephen King, which I feel like he's kind of lacking a little bit of the bite he used to have. But it is still very good.
Excellent. I'm definitely going to check that out.
Oh, well, what do you think, Garrett? Have we soaked up enough of your time for today?
Unless you have any more questions for me.
We didn't want to keep you on the hook too long. We can't say thank you enough for coming on and having a chat with us. We really do appreciate it.
Anytime. And I'll keep sending you some download codes for the next books I got coming up.
Yes, please
give them a review.
Yeah, we really appreciate that. Most of all, it's so awesome. Is there anything, if you want, you can go ahead and give yourself some plugs here if you want. Is there anywhere people should be checking you out?
Sure. You can look up my name, Garrett Michael Brown, on Audible or Amazon, and have 30-something books at this point, and all of those will come up for you. If anyone out there is into sci-fi, sort of sarcastic military, Interstellar Gunrunner, the Ashes of Eternity series by Jeremy Spires. Working on a Rick Partlow series right now called Star Bounty. There's 4 in that, but he's talking about writing some more after those are done. Hallowed War. I've got 2 of those out and a third one finishing that one coming up here soon. Battle Ring Earth by John Frater. That series is coming up. And then after that is Cerberus for the next year, probably, because that's going to be 12 books.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Then there should be some other ones in there interspersed as well. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we definitely we reviewed Interstellar Gunrunner pretty highly. So
yeah, I heard that. Thank you.
We definitely enjoyed that one. So
yeah, it's a good series.
Thank you.
For sure.
Or trilogy, I guess.
Trilogy for now. He's talking about doing other ones.
Wait, what? How?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know, like backstories or something. He hasn't really got. I don't have the the exact info on that one yet, but there's other characters in the universe he wants to bring out and flesh out a little bit more.
Oh,
and
cool.
That makes
do like
sense.
side stories kind of a thing.
Yeah, I
like-
would definitely listen to one about Narrator the Lesser.
Isn't he awesome? That was such a fun character.
Yeah, he's so intimidating. It's
Yeah.
great.
He was great. I mean, who would have thought of an alien put together as just a big bunch of amoeba like gloop in a big suit, big iron suit, and that's an alien. It's awesome. That dude's going places. He's great.
He actually, James Wolanick actually, because I usually put the episodes up on YouTube as well, and he commented on our YouTube review of it very
fun.
quickly, and he was so excited that we reviewed it. So that was pretty cool.
That's fun. He's a good guy. He's a real good guy. I like him a lot. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. A lot of books coming up. So if you like my voice, there's plenty to listen to.
Well, cool. Well, right on, Garrett. And again, we appreciate it. And yeah, you got anything else, Bill?
Nope. I mean, if anybody wants to email us and talk to us, I mean, if there are any other narrators out here that would like to come on here, please email us at kotpl.pod@gmail.com. And Ryan's usually pretty quick at getting back to people. So if you want to come on, like, anybody's welcome, honestly. And you don't necessarily have to just narrate audiobooks. If you do like voice acting of any kind, we would love to talk to you.
For sure.
Excellent.
I think with that, we'll wrap the episode up. Thank you all for listening.